This year, between the 6th November and the 18th of November, in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, the United Nations held its 27th Climate Change Conference or COP27. During this conference, world leaders made speeches, and made promises, about what we should be doing, to save our planet from certain extinction. Was this all hot air, and empty promises? Pedro and Steve are going to discuss these issues, and present to you a lot of new advanced vocabulary. Please don't forget to subscribe, and leave your comments below in the comments section.
Hello, and welcome back to the second conversation between Steve and Pedro. Today's conversation is going to be about climate change, something that everybody is aware of. But we're going to have a discussion about climate change with a difference. And along the way, I'm going to be asking them some questions. And they're going to have to answer and discuss. All right, so let's get going. See you in a little while.
In just days, our planet's population will cross a new threshold. The 8 billionth member of our human family will be born. This milestone puts into perspective what this climate conference is all about. How will we answer when baby 8 billion is old enough to ask, what did you do for our world and for our planet when you had the chance?
So, what did Antonio mean when he said, what will baby 8 billion say to us when he gets older? So what will he want to ask us? What do you think, Pedro and Steve?
Okay, so Pedro, what did Antonio mean then when he said, well, he asked the question actually, he said, what will baby 8 billion ask us in the future? So it was actually last week, just before you answer, it was actually last week, the 8th billionth baby was born. So we officially had over 8 billion people on the planet. And that happened, it was last week, I think. So he used that analogy and he said, well, what will baby 8 billion ask us in the future?
Okay, he will ask what we did for our planet, for our world, when we have
correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's what he said. He said, you know, what he was referring to is that the decisions are ours today, because as we've read doing those 2 lessons, the consequences of not doing anything are dire. Does that make sense?
Tragically, dire.
Yeah, do you understand the word dire?
Something tragic, something terrible.
Yeah, exactly. When we use that word dire, we mean that it's the worst possible outcome. The worst possible outcome. So the weather today is dire. It means it's very, very bad.
Very bad. The worst possible. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
The clock is ticking. We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing. Greenhouse gas emissions keep growing. Global temperatures keep rising. And our planet is fast approaching tipping points that will make climate chaos irreversible.
So what is a tipping point? When Antonio talked about a tipping point, could you explain to me what that means? A tipping point. What do you think, Steve?
All right, my second question then was, what's a tipping point? Can you explain a tipping point and give me like a simple analogy?
A tipping point, okay.
Yeah.
according to video and with what I remember, tipping point is a point of no return. Okay.
Correct. So give me an example then of a tipping point. You can give me a scientific tipping point, or you can just give me a very simple analogy. You choose.
Okay. Can I use can I use a chair example?
You can use any example you want, whatever is simple and explains exactly the meaning of a tipping point.
A tipping point. Okay. So I'm gonna use the example of the chair because I think it's a good one. I'm sitting in a chair with the possibility of inclination. If I use and lever here in my chair, I can incline the seat.
Okay.
I can go backwards and I can go forwards. If I lean back and continue lean back into a certain point, there is a point when I cannot return to my original position. I will fall. If I reach this point, I will fall.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. So what we're actually saying is that in science, specifically in climate science, there are a number of tipping points around the world where we lose control of the amount of CO2 or the temperature rising. And then one tipping point can trip another tipping point, as in a kind of domino effect. Yeah?
Yes, you cannot do something about it when you reach this tipping point, right?
Yes, correct.
You lost control.
Correct.
Okay.
We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator.
What did Antonio mean when he said, we are on a highway to hell and our foot is on the accelerator? Very disturbing. We are on a highway to hell and our foot is on the accelerator. What does that mean? What do you think, Pedro?
Okay, then. So my third question was then that at the beginning of Antonio's speech, at the beginning of the COP27 in Egypt, he used a reference to a rock song, and it was AC/DC, the Australian rock band. And he said, we're on the highway to hell with our foot still on the accelerator. We're on the highway to hell with our foot still on the accelerator. What did he mean when he said that, Pedro? What did he mean? What was he trying to tell us?
Well, we are going to die. We are going to the end of the line, and we are doing nothing about it. We are not taking an action to avoid the end of the line.
Yes, but I think on the highway to hell, I think that the most telling part was our foot is still on the accelerator. So we're not only just
we are contributing to it. Yes, we are contributing to it.
Yeah, we're speeding up.
Yes,
we're not slowing down. We're speeding up. This is getting worse and worse and worse. Yes, correct.
The clock is ticking. We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
Right. We are in the fight of our lives, and the clock is ticking. We are in the fight of our lives, and the clock is ticking. Very alarmist, excuse the pun. But what does that mean, guys? What does that mean?
Okay, then. So my fourth question is, he also said, we are in the fight of our lives and the clock is ticking. So we've got two things there. We're in the fight of our lives. It actually said we're in the fight of our lives and we are losing, and the clock is ticking. So there's two things to think about there. The fight of our lives and we are losing that fight, and the clock is ticking. What do you think he meant by those two things? Can you kind of simplify it?
I think I can. The fight of our lives is the fight to control climate changing and global warming. That's the fight.
Yes.
And clock ticking means that our time is ending. We don't have much time.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have much time to control global warming until we hit the tipping point. We have mentioned it before. If you reach a certain point, we cannot do anything about it. Our time is ending. The clock is ticking.
Yes. The way I interpreted the fight of our lives and we're losing, the fight of our lives, how many fights has the human race been in? Countless wars. In recent years, we've had 2 world wars and countless other smaller wars, if you can ever call a war small. I mean, we're in one at the moment in Europe with the Ukraine,
Russia, right,
where millions and millions of people get killed in these, in world wars. But he referred to this as the fight of our lives, which means this is the worst war that we've ever been in. And we're losing it. And we're running out of time. The clock is ticking.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's just take a short break. The first term we used was tipping point, the point at which we can't control the outcome anymore. The second term was highway to hell, a destination we definitely don't want to go. The third term was we are in the fight of our lives and we are losing, the most important fight or war the world has faced, and we are losing that fight. It really doesn't look good for humanity.
Humanity has a choice: cooperate or perish. It is either a climate solidarity pact or a collective suicide pact.
What is a suicide pact? What did he say? We are either in a suicide agreement or something, he said, or a climate suicide pact. Are we all going to die? That's a bit worrying. What do you think, guys? Are we going to die? What did he mean?
And then he said something else, which was I thought was even worse. He said, what was it he said? He said, it's either he said it was either a climate suicide pact
or a climate solidarity pact.
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much. I'd forgotten. He said we're in a climate solidarity pact or a climate suicide pact. What do you think that meant?
Well, it's what you were talking about. Climate suicide pact is going to happen if we don't do nothing and follow the highway to accelerate.
Yes, sorry. Yes, yeah. If we don't do anything, can you? I don't know if you can remember in English. If you use a double negative, it means a positive, and vice versa. Yeah. So if we don't do anything, correct.
So that's the suicide pact.
Yes. So a pact. The word pact is similar in Portuguese, isn't it? It's pact. Is it pato? Pato. Yes, that's right. So that's right. So we either have an agreement to kill ourselves, or we have an agreement to work together.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Unacceptable, outrageous, and self-defeating to put it on the back burner.
Really? This is not the time to put it on the back burner. What does that mean? This is not the time to put something on the back burner. What do you think, guys? What is What's a back burner? What does he mean by that?
Okay, number 6 then was, he said this is not a time to put this on the back burner. This is not the time to put this problem on the back burner. What do you think he meant by that? And do you understand what a back burner is?
Yeah, I'm not sure about it. I will tell and you say.
Okay.
It's a back burner is a way to cook a food by steam. Am I right?
Not quite. You're on the right lines. Let me explain it to you. So in your kitchen, you have a cooker. You have a cooker, right? In Portuguese, you say fogão. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. So how many rings? So how many gas rings? Because I guess, like most people, your cooker is gas.
Yes.
Yeah. CO2 again, as we were talking about. So same as me, I produce CO2 every time I cook food. So on our cooker, I think if I remember, we have 6 burners on the top. How many burners do you have on the top of your cooker?
Only 4.
4. Okay. So those are the burners. So when you cook something, for example, last night we had a very nice risotto, and it was cooked on the front 2 burners. So generally when we cook something, we use the 2 front burners. And then if we want to keep something warm, or it's cooked and it's just sitting there waiting for us to finish the potatoes or something on the front burners, we put them on the 2 back burners on a low heat, or not switched on at all. Good. So to put something on the back burner, when we say that, it means that we either do it very slowly, or we don't do it at all. So the things that we need to do to control the CO2 going into the atmosphere, we need to put on the front burner and do it now, not to put it on the back burner and do it later. We don't have the time. That's what he meant.
I got it. Don't face it right now. Put it on the back burner.
Yes.
And the war in Ukraine has exposed the profound risks of our fossil fuel addiction. And today's crisis cannot be an excuse for backsliding or greenwashing.
2 words there. What is greenwashing? What is greenwashing, guys? Oh, and he also said backsliding. Backsliding, what does that mean? That sounds fun. Come on, let's go backsliding. No, I think he was being serious. What does that mean, guys? Backsliding and greenwashing.
The last 2 interesting things he said, he used 2 expressions. He said backsliding and greenwashing.
Okay.
What is backsliding? Any ideas?
I have an idea. It's like walking backwards. It's a kind of retrocess. Am I right?
It's like, well, yeah, to recess, if that's what you said. So in everything in life, you and I, we like to think that we're making progress with our studies, at university, with work, with our relationships, with everything, with our lives. We like to think we're making progress. Backsliding is going in the opposite direction. Think about going up a hill that is covered in ice. As you're walking up the hill, you suddenly lose traction and you slide back down to the bottom. Or I can give you a realistic example. In the UK, we've been doing quite well in terms of doing things to meet our net zero targets. They've decided to make it illegal to sell new diesel and petrol cars by 2030. Wherever you go, there are hundreds of thousands of solar panels and wind turbines everywhere. they're putting charging points everywhere for these electric cars. Now, that is, obviously, if that's going to be effective, that's a matter of opinion. I don't really think so. But since the Ukraine war and the price of gas and oil has gone through the roof in every country, our UK government has decided to start looking for oil and gas again in the North Sea. That is classic backsliding, going in the wrong direction, Mr. Sunak.
I see.
Yeah.
So if you are already doing something, like you are already driving an electric car, and then you return to a fossil fuel car, a gasoline car, you are backsliding.
Yes. So going in the wrong direction with anything you could refer to as backsliding. The other term he used was greenwashing. Any ideas about what greenwashing is?
This one is hard. Greenwashing. Yeah, I will try a guess. Okay.
Okay.
Greenwash is like pretend to be eco-friendly or pretend to do something.
Correct.
Yes, is that
correct?
To pretend to be, not really be.
Spot on. You hit the nail on the head. Two expressions there for you. In other words, you said exactly the right thing. Let me give you an example. I had a student, Carlos, a few weeks ago, and I was asking him this question. Is your company, would you consider your company to be environmentally friendly? Green, because we use the word green. And he said, yes, of course, because my company, we buy scrap metal, all kinds of steel, iron, copper, brass, aluminium. We buy it from big industrial units around the country, and then we send it for recycling. We recycle. The word recycle in itself is a green word. And I said, oh, where in Brazil is it recycled? Where does it actually happen? Because I've never seen a recycling plant in Brazil, but I've not traveled that much, so I probably missed it. And he said, oh no. I live in Santos, so it's very handy because every month I have about 90 containers of scrap metal. My job is to find the scrap metal, organize it to be put in a container, and then it spends 45 days on a huge ship going to Bangladesh. I said, Carlos, that's not environmentally friendly. So 45 days on a huge ship burning all that oil, that's not environmentally friendly. That's actually causing the problem. And then he suddenly realized, he said,
yes,
Steve,
you're right. We are living in an illusion.
We live in an illusion, exactly. And so even the recycling, in your mother's kitchen, in my kitchen, we put in the glass in one bag, we put in the plastic in another, and the paper and cardboard in another, and the garden waste in another, and we're feeling good because we're recycling.
Yes.
But it's not helping. It's not helping because a lot of this stuff is not being recycled locally. It's going off to some far-flung country.
Yes, you don't actually
and
know.
Causing Sorry?
Yes, you don't actually know what is made of the plastic you throw in the trash can.
Well, it's not just about what it's made of. It's where it's going to be recycled. Because if it's got to be sent to another country, that defeats the object. That's causing the problem, not solving it. So I don't believe in recycling because I don't think it helps. I don't think it helps at all. And it definitely doesn't help if they're sending it to a different country. If you collect all your stuff, your bottles, your aluminium, your Coke cans and all that sort of stuff, and it's recycled in your town without being transported halfway across the world or even 100 kilometers away, that's not so bad. But when you put it on a ship and send it to Bangladesh, forget it. There's your problem. So it's about money. It's not about saving the planet. It's about money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So now that we both now that we're both very depressed, because every answer's been very, very negative.
Yes, this subject is terrible.
Yeah.
It's
This is
sad.
the worst English lesson you've ever had, Pedro.
Yes, but it could get worse.
It's going to get worse from what we've read. Yeah. Do you realize you've just paid me good money to be depressed on a Saturday afternoon?
I am depressed, so it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, thanks very much for your time. Anyway, Pedro, and okay. And I like the background. Anyway, it really looks like we are doing our bit for the environment. Not.
Why it's a waste of time recycling. When we talk about climate change and what we need to do to stop it, reverse it or slow it, what are we actually talking about? Most people are waiting for their governments to do something. But is this really what is going to change things? I say no. It isn't the governments who are producing CO2, it's us. Yes, me and you and our parents. Let me ask you 2 questions. Are you going to ask your dad to sell his car, stop eating meat and stop heating our house in the winter? Are you going to stop producing CO2? The short answer is no. It's people who need to stop doing what we are doing, and I don't believe we are capable of doing what is necessary to stop this march towards climate disaster and subsequent biological extinction. Here's why. Look at this data. Every year in Hawaii, scientists take an atmospheric carbon dioxide reading in January. Look at this graph of the readings since 1959. It's not difficult to see that the increments are about 3 parts per million, increasing each year. Today in 2022 we are on 418 parts per million and rising. So in January 2023 it will read 421. Easy maths, right? Even I can do this, and I am only 10 years old. Therefore in 2050 the reading will be 501 unless our parents don't stop driving their cars, eating meat and heating our homes. On the way to 2050 and climate disaster, there are a number of irreversible tipping points. A tipping point is a point at which nature and our physics take over and human activity can stop the changes even if we wanted to. Here are the unstoppable changes that will happen to me and my friends. 1. The carbon 386 tipping point 2015. At this point, we entered into the beginning and first phase of runaway global heating. This was discovered by James Hansen, the NASA scientist who was one of the first to warn the world of the extinction threat. 2. The 2025 carbon 425 to 450 parts per million tipping point. This will be the second phase of runaway global heating, an unavoidable extinction process for half of humanity by mid-century 2050, which is less than 28 years away. Remember the simple maths. 2023 to 2050 equals 27 years, 27 years 10 parts per million equals 81 parts per million, our current level is 421. 421 parts per million plus 81 parts per million equals 502 parts per million. 3. The 2042 to 2067 or earlier carbon 500 parts per million tipping point begins the runaway global ice melt. This is the third phase of runaway global heating, which accelerates the unavoidable extinction process for half of humanity by mid-century and can lead to the extinction of an even greater portion of humanity. Once the global ice melt really begins, the 3 parts per million per year will increase to 4 or even 6 parts per million per year. 4. The 2063 to 2072 or earlier, the carbon 600 parts per million near total human extinction tipping point due to massive methane releases from the permafrost in the oceans. 5. The post-2072, the carbon 750 parts per million final and fifth phase of runaway global heating. This crossed threshold leads to a total human and biological life extinction. In conclusion. So, what is my message? Let's imagine your daughter on My Little Sister is 2 years old in January 2023. In 2050 at a carbon dioxide level of 500 parts per million she will be 29 years old, and she will know that there is no point in getting married or having kids because her children will not survive. This is not the future. It's now. Stop recycling, it is a waste of time. If you really want to survive this inevitable disaster, then stop driving your cars, stop eating meat, stop heating your homes, stop consuming products. What was it you said, Dad? No. That is exactly my point, Dad. Dad, I don't want to die.
Okay, and that's it. That's it for another conversation. I hope you enjoyed the conversation between, well, myself this time and Steve and Pedro. But we'll be back next week for who knows what subject. Okay, take care. See you later. Bye.
Feliz Natal a todos e Feliz Ano Novo! Você está olhando para melhorar sua vida no próximo ano? Você quer aprender inglês o mais rápido possível sem que isso lhe custe uma fortuna? Então você veio ao lugar certo. O professor Steve é britânico e um dos professores particulares de inglês mais experientes do Brasil. Ele leciona há mais de 30 anos. Ele está oferecendo uma grande oferta introdutória especialmente para o Natal. Então, se não for por você, por que não presentear algumas lições para alguém que você conhece? Você pode ter 10 aulas pelo Zoom, individualmente, pelo preço total de R$500. Sim, tá certo! Apenas R$500 nas primeiras 10 aulas. Cada aula dura 50 minutos, totalmente estruturada e todos os materiais de estudo estão incluídos no preço. Você estará falando inglês em menos de um ano. Entre em contato com ele agora em